Hello, it is January the 9th, 2021. I am John Anthony Francis Wilcox, and let's talk about the week. So, for me, it was a kind of a roller coaster week. I'm sure it was for lots of people, for most people, for I'm going to say obvious reasons. And I'm not going to talk about that at all today because I'm sure that everyone is, if you haven't had your fill with it, I don't know about having your fill with it is the right thing, but let's not talk about that. Um, Interesting week. Made some great chicken cacciatore. Good stuff. This week, today is Saturday, as I'm doing this at quarter after five, and I have plans this week to make some nice jambalaya. My I haven't made in a long time some nice creamy cheesy chicken and noodles. Can do that, and do some homemade hot dogs and beans in the oven with sausage and onions and stuff. And that was a hiccup, sort of a half hiccup, a hiccup. It's a combinant thing. But last week I asked people if there's stuff they'd like to hear me talk about, and my friend Leanna um, asked if I might have something to say on the influence of silent movies on comic book storytelling. As I'm a big silent movie fan, and of course have been a professional cartoonist since '83. And as I thought about that, and it's a great question, Leanna, by the way, truly, I don't think I can cover that in less than a couple of hours. However, having said that, let me narrow that focus. I'm going to use, as an example, the film The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which I think is a fantastic movie. If people haven't seen it, see it. If you have seen it, you know why I said that. Now, that to me is quite a compelling film in terms of filmmaking and set design and camera shots and just all that sort of thing. And influence, see, I can't get into the minds of the people in the business, so I'm going to use parallel as a word. I see within comic strips a parallel with the great Lionel Feininger, who, I mean, he was also a fine arts painter, but he did a wonderful old strip called The Kinder Kids. And I can see some of that Caligari kind of symbolism and um, how am I going to say this? Decorative elements, perhaps? Um, Semi cubist approach within there, because I see some of that in Caligari. Bringing it forward, I also see that in a lot of Steve Ditko's horror work, his pre Marvel and during Marvel horror work, and his Doctor Strange work. I can see a parallel to a lot of the elements that I see within Caligari. And I don't see that in Spider Man. In Spider Man, he had a more, how do I put it? I suppose it's a sort of cinematic approach, but it was a more, um, the lens is wider. The lens is wider. The sets are more normal every day. Now, when I think of Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and those wild, wild sets and the skewed windows and that, I think of all those worlds like where the nameless ones are pounding on the walls in Doctor Strange, in Dormammu's realm and in other realms, in the Nightmare realm. Beautiful example. So that I definitely see, if not an inspiration, a parallel. Now I can speak about myself. And as someone who's written a lot of comics, a fair amount of comics, and I've colored many, 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 over 40,000 pages, Um, I can tell you how films like that affected me. Whenever I plot out or write a story, I'm always primarily beyond the mechanic of the story of this person must do this thing and have this thing happen. I am always thinking visually. I'm always thinking I want that camera to always be doing something interesting, to focus on something interesting. And if I have my characters talking, I want movement. I hate a static panel. If you look at stories I've done, unless the artist has changed what I've laid out, because there's only a few times in my life that I've done a script that was strictly a typed or written script. I've always thumbnailed them out on typing paper to give the artist a quick look at what I'm looking for. Now, they may interpret that differently, and they often do to a degree, but I see my elements in there for the most part. And I want that visual thinking, and I want to have the eye of the reader always be interested in moving forward. Much like Caligari, Caligari has wonderful movement within it. Even in its more static scenes, they take place in a fascinating place. That is your choice as a writer. Where is your story taking place? Why can't I put that scene in a more interesting place? If I have to have two characters talking, let's say when I'd written an Archie story, can they be in the park? Can they be in something with an interesting visual around them for them to interact with? Can I have them doing something that is visual, not just verbal? Also, a great thing that you learn from silent movies, or at least I did, is think of subtitles. Think of how much of a silent movie is, in fact, silent, beyond the score. Have your dialogue only be necessary. That's what I learned. Have it. Sometimes people want more words from me, and that's not the point. The point isn't how many words you use, it is the effect of the words. And that's what I'm all about. I always have been, sometimes early on without even realizing it. I later came to see that thankfully I maintained a path that I was looking for. But that's just look at this as a snapshot on that subject, Leanna, and everyone else who's listening, or anyone else who's listening. I hope you're listening and haven't turned this off already. Um, but let's have that be that for this moment. But you've made me think that perhaps I should do a more extensive thing, or perhaps find someone to have that conversation with on camera. Maybe even you. Let's talk about that. Anyway, folks, that's it for this week. My love to everyone. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I hope I haven't scared off too many people. Please come back. Let me hear from you. Let me hear what you have to say. Let me hear if there's anything else you'd like to have me talk about or not talk about. And I will see you next week. Bye bye.